This is the Classic Auto Mall Show. Broadcast from the studios inside the Classic Auto Mall in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Just 1 hour west of Philadelphia at Pennsylvania Turnpike exit 298. Featuring nearly 1,000 classic, vintage, and barn-find vehicles for sale under one climate-controlled roof. Now, here's your host, Classic Auto Mall president and the man with all the toys, Stewart Howden.
And we are back with the Classic Auto Mall podcast, live from the Classic Auto Mall studios in beautiful, sunny downtown Morgantown. It's not even morning, it's afternoon. This is an odd time for us to be doing it, but we did it for a good reason because we've got a great guest on today. Our new friend, calling us probably from somewhere in North Carolina, Ray Evernerham. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we're actually in Mooresville, North Carolina, too. That's where our Big Iron Garage is up here.
I love that part of the world, man. That's a beautiful part of the world with the lakes and all that going on. And that's a place that would be a good place to retire someday, except every time I look for a place to retire, it seems like the price of real estate doubles every time I look at it. So,
yeah, well, retirement is, I think retirement is a dream that we all keep chasing because it just, guys like you and I, we just don't retire. We just, I always tell everybody retirement just means more want-to-dos, less have-to-dos.
That's exactly right. Well, my partner just turned 84 years old. So, I mean, he's still rocking and he's still doing business every day. And I love it. It's a real inspiration. The downside to your partner being 84 is if you decide one day you want to retire, he'll say, well, hey, you can't retire. You're only X and I'm 84. So.
Hey, trust me, I'm still good friends with Mr. Penske and he's 85 running. He'll outrun me every day of the week.
He is amazing, and I mean, sharp as a tack, and just fun to talk to, and a real gracious person. He
absolutely.
It's really amazing that Penske, and he's from this part of the world, from Reading, just north of us. And I found out in my research of you that you're a Jersey boy.
I am. I lived in New Jersey most of my life. I'm here in North Carolina almost as long as I was in New Jersey, but I lived in a town called Hazlitt. It's near the Bay Shore.
Yeah,
and then grew up racing at Wall Stadium in Belmar, New Jersey.
It is so amazing that the car culture in Jersey and Pennsylvania is something that a lot of people don't truly understand. It's amazing how many car events and places and drag strips and all of the stuff that's here. It's just right here, and people don't realize that. They think it's Southern California. I got to argue that this may be as much of car culture as anywhere.
Well, the guys at Southern California, they've always been a little bit ahead with some of the some of the fabrication, design, and things like that. But I always tell everybody, that they get 3 to 4 months more good weather than we get every year. So it's tough, But I was just out there and spent some time at the Petersen Museum, and that place blows me away. They have done a phenomenal job with that, and got to see the stuff down in the vault. So, if you ever get out there, anybody gets out there, it's worth paying the other $20 or whatever it is to go and see the vault. But if you are a car person, the way they've documented basically all of any kind of motorsports or history of cars, it honestly, it blew me away. I spent about a day and a half there, and that I kept going back. Yeah.
And that doesn't happen with car guys, because you and I have seen so many different things that if you go to for most part, you go to any car show, you walk past the same cars that you've seen, and you get a little jaded in this business because you're just around so many wonderful cars. And it takes something really special to kind of stop you in your tracks or make you stop and take a second glance.
And Chip Ganassi and some of his guys, I was out there with them, for the Long Beach Grand Prix. But, even Chip turned to me and said, really, have you ever seen anything like this in your life? And honestly, I had. They've got some of the most incredible cars out there. So again, that's a bit of a shameless plug for the Petersen, but I can tell you, I get nothing from it other than they're really good people. And if you're a car person, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and the building is beautiful. That redesign on the building that they did, it's spectacular. And then, of course, our friend Bruce Meyer, who helped with the Petersen, he's got an amazing collection of cars as well, too. So.
That I will tell you. And again, you won't meet you talk about a guy that just truly is passionate and has spent so much of his own time and money trying to make sure he preserves these incredible cars and shows them to people and whatnot. He is really, he is an awesome guy. He really is. And as I said, as hard as he's worked just to preserve some of the history that he does, it's amazing.
Absolutely. We met him. Lee Cross puts on the Shelby GT350 to a reunion tour every year, and he was here, and they were in Hershey, and we got to spend some time with him down there. And like you said, just an awesome guy, and a great friend of the hobby. And you know what the great thing about the hobby has become? It's not just, I like NASCAR and I like Formula One. I like Harleys and I like Ferraris and I like street rods and I like race cars. People aren't as pigeonholed as they used to be in the hobby. And I call it a hobby. It's a huge business now. I don't know what I'm saying, hobby, but it is amazing. I mean, your collection is diverse as is everybody's.
And I learned a long time ago, this is, you collect what you like. Right. And that's the whole point. And I like everything, like you just said. So I end up with a bunch of cars. They're like, hey, what's your favorite car? And I was like, if I could pick my favorite car, I wouldn't have to have so many.
Well, that's the beauty of our business. We have 300 barn finds and 700 cars for sale in our building. And you have to put on blinders, because otherwise it's like letting your wife work at the dress shop. She'll never come home with a paycheck. And I want to buy everything that comes in the door, so there's that. But, one of the things we wanted to talk to you about, and we want to talk about your upcoming nuptials at auction with Mecum coming up in May. But I want to talk to you a little bit about, obviously, NASCAR and some of the things you've done. And congratulations to your Hall of Fame induction in 2018. I mean, that's so cool. How cool was that? One of the coolest things you've been involved in your life?
I think when as your career builds, you're not really thinking about things like that. And then all of a sudden you look back, your career is over, and you've done a lot of different things and not really sure if it's been recognized, because sometimes we don't even take enough time to stop and enjoy and document the things that we've done. And then to be voted into the Hall of Fame by, it's really by your peers that happens, whether it's press or whether it's other drivers or historians. And to even be mentioned in that list of great people that are in that hall, it is really a big honor. It's a very emotional experience. It's very hard to explain to people when you're standing up there. It's by far the greatest yet most humbling honor you could ever receive, being part of that. So certainly that induction into the NASCAR Hall of Fame was one of the biggest moments in my life, not just my career.
Sure. And you know what? It is humbling when people say nice things about you. It really, and as it should be. But, to have, your buddy and co-worker Jeff Gordon say all the nice things that he said, I mean, and it's documented for history. It's there. It ain't going anywhere, because it'll always be out there for somebody to see and review. And then also, didn't you just class of 2023 Motorsports Hall of Fame now?
Yeah, that was another big one for me. I'm going to tell you, there were four that are on my list. Growing up where I grew up in New Jersey and racing around there, a lot of great friends in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey area, racing the modifieds and the sprint cars. The Eastern Motorsports Press Association was always a big one for me.
Right.
We were able to get in there. And then the National Motorsports Press Association down here, another one. And certainly the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And I kept thinking, man, someday I hope that the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America thinks enough of me. And sure enough, got the call from George Levy and the people down there to let them know that I'm going to be part of that. And, my head just spins around, because I think here, look, not that long. I'm just like a guy that was racing cars in New Jersey and somehow ended up here. I tell everybody all the time, I swear I'm the Forrest Gump of auto racing, just been in the right place at the right time. And so very, very excited. And again, I was super humbled to find out, because if you look at the Motorsports Hall of Fame down there in Daytona, and there's the list of people like, they're just incredible legends. And
it's everybody.
I never think of myself at that level.
Right. And the class of 2023 is going to be not only you, but you got Zora, Arcus Duntov. You got, who else was on there? I saw some other, Fonty Flock. Now, that's a name I'd never heard of.
Fonty, the Flock family was really, really early in NASCAR. There was Fonty and Tim, and they had a sister that ran as well, and she was a damn good driver.
Really?
But the Flock family, all big winners early in NASCAR history, and did an awful lot for the popularity of NASCAR, because they, as a family, were very popular.
Sure. And a great name. I mean, that's such a memorable name that you can't ever forget that one if you ever met the guys. So let's talk a little bit about modern day version of NASCAR. What just this past weekend, in recording times anyway, whether this airs in that time or not, Bristol on the dirt. What's your thoughts on that? That was interesting.
Times change, right? Things evolve, and I tell people this all the time, like, and mechanical things evolve a lot quicker because of the tools, the thing that we're doing. It just doesn't stay the same. So NASCAR's done a really good job, I think, lately evolving with it. And they also know that the world, the way we watch motorsports, is changing, and then now it's a lot about television ratings. You're not going to put 125,000 people in the stands anymore in today's, with the COVID and the expenses and this and that. And I think NASCAR did a fantastic job designing that car and looking into the future, saying, okay, this car is going to bring, it's never going to bring costs down, okay? But it's going to stop that curve from going up like this. It's going to flatten that expense curve, because and as I know, in racing, look, if you got money, you're going to spend it. But they've reduced that angle of that expense curve, and they've made the competition such that it should bring in new manufacturers, and it's certainly going to bring in new owners. Look at how competitive, a young guy like Justin Marks with a brand new team is doing. So it's going to bring in new owners, new manufacturers. It's going to reduce that expense curve, and it's bringing a little bit of a younger audience. And, they can say what they want. It was not a Bristol crowd like we saw, right?
Exactly.
But it had over 4 million TV viewers. It was the highest rated TV show for Bristol since 2016. So, they're going in the right direction with these things, and it just takes time. And I tell everybody all the time, look, it's evolution. I've got my good old days, but when I came in, I got yelled at by the Harry Hydes and the Junior Johnsons because we messed up their good old days. And
exactly.
The mechanical world is changing.
Yeah, we've all said we're all born 20 years too late, and any generation says that. But what the funny thing about racing is they say that it costs the same today as it did 50 years ago. Every penny you got, which I love that. So that's a fantastic saying. But you know what? I love Bristol, and I love the way that it's in that stadium type setting, which is so cool. And then you add the dirt element to it. And then if you've never been to Bristol, if you don't go over to Thunder Valley to the drag strip and watch one of those cars light up and go down through that valley, it's just the most unbelievable thing you've ever experienced. And it's nice to see the competitiveness in NASCAR. I mean, you watch Formula One, and there goes Lewis. Well, we'll see. He's 40 seconds ahead of everybody. Or there goes Max.
Yeah, not this year.
No, not this year. I'm watching it closely. I love Formula One, and I love, as much as I love NASCAR, which seems to be a contradiction, but it is what it is. I love them both, and I love dirt track and all of the all types of motorsports and racing. Do you think that? What do you see? Is NASCAR are we gonna see electric race cars? Do you think? I mean, I know we see them now, but in NASCAR, do you think?
Again, it's the evolution. I'm sure that auto racing is going to change, right? And Chip Ganassi made some really good comments about that, because somebody asked him the same question when we were doing a deal at Petersen, and Chip said, "Look, it's racing's racing." I'm sure there's going to be forms of hybrid, and wherever the industry goes, right? People are going to want to race what they drive, and there'll always be some kind of an internal combustion engine. And I think it doesn't matter as much what powers the car if we keep the racing good and we keep it about the drivers, right? It's about the drivers.
That's the best way I've ever heard it put. As long as you keep it about the racing and the drivers and all that, that's exactly what everybody wants to see. That's what they pay to see, to have their favorites or their heroes or their villains, right? It doesn't matter either way. So when we return, we're going to delve into Ray's maybe not first venture, but venture into the big time auction world coming up at Mecum in May. We'll talk about some of the cars he's got up there and his thoughts on how that's all going to transpire. So we'll be back in just a minute.
The Classic Auto Mall has more than 1,000 vehicles for consignment in our huge 8-acre climate-controlled showroom. It's a real indoor mall. If you'd like to know all the advantages of buying and selling a car through consignment, the information is available on our website, or you can talk to a classic car specialist who can answer all your questions. It's easy, safe, convenient, and it doesn't matter where you are. We sell worldwide. See our huge selection of classic and collectible vehicles at classicautomall.com.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall podcast from our Classic Auto Mall studios in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Where's Morgantown, Pennsylvania? You say we're an hour west of Philadelphia, or an hour east of Hershey and Harrisburg and all points in Carlisle. We're about an hour and 10 from there, so we're kind of right in the hub of car world. And we're speaking to a great guest of ours. Ray Evernerham's with us from NASCAR fame and all kinds of other things, a couple of TV shows. And do you miss doing TV? Are you doing more TV now? What are you doing now TV-wise?
Would like to bring Americana back or something. You know, I love television, love it. Was very fortunate enough to have worked for ESPN several years and then did a little NBC, mostly on the racing stuff. But yeah, after a while, I just wanted to get off the road. Again, ESPN was a fantastic job. Used to go up to Hartford or Bristol, Connecticut, and do the shows on Monday, and then do the shows at the racetrack. Work with Rusty Wallace and Brad Daugherty and Alan Bestwick, people like that. So loved it. But again, that being on the road that long, it gets tough. So would like to go back and do car shows. And I don't have to tell you though. Now with everything going on, finding a place to put that content and how to manage it and everything is a lot more difficult than actually producing it. So
absolutely,
but hopefully we'll kick it off again. But I do like doing TV.
Yeah, it's fun. We've kind of fallen into a little bit of a groove doing this podcast because we kind of did it as a whim thing. Look, there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of people you can listen to, and some people I apparently listen to a lot of podcasts. I had never really listened to many until we started doing it. And now, by virtue, I want to see if I'm any good or if I stack up at all with the other guys. So, but we're having fun. And hey, if you want to do a TV show with 1,000 cars in a building, come on, we'll talk to you about Morgantown. So let's talk about Mecum Indy 2022. You're taking 32 cars in an engine to one of arguably the largest collector car auction probably you'll ever be. Over 3,000 cars they're going to have in there. What made you make that decision, and has it been what's been the experience?
Well, first of all, let me say the experience with the folks at Mecum have been fantastic. Frank and Dana came here, looked at the auction. We've got a gentleman named Clint Sly who's really put the things together. He, guy that I met when he was working at Haggerty, great guy. But have been talking about selling the collection and doing this, and been talking to people about how to do it. And really, the truth is that I moved out of one building, moved into a smaller building, and we're I enjoy hunting the cars down, doing the history and restoring them. And it's time to let some of these go to do some more. We've been doing really the collecting, buying, selling, restoring pretty hard at it since I sold my race team in about 2007. So it's, we've done the Andretti car and the Gurney car and some hot rods and this and that, but it's time to let these things go and take that money and go buy some more and be doing it, because I enjoy putting them together. I enjoy finding the race cars and putting them back on the racetrack. I enjoy finding a car with a story that's worth saving. We've done like 3 Marty Robbins cars, and now we're doing a bunch of high route cars, and everything that we have. There's a reason it's here. I just didn't go. I don't really buy cars to go buy a car and flip it.
Sure.
We buy a car with a story and try and save it. And no different than we were just talking about the wife in the dress shop. I'm just as bad. You know what I mean? The only thing that limits you having cars that people, it's not money. Tell her it's not money.
It's not.
How much space do you have? I always tell everybody, don't worry about how much it is. How much is it a month?
That's exactly right. That's all we care about. We've got some fire trucks here, and we can't put them inside because they're too darn big. And we have a 336,000 square foot building, and we're running out of room.
You can hold races inside that. You do do your test drives inside?
Well,
we all use golf carts around here to get around, and they're electric golf carts not because we're lazy, and we are, but because you couldn't get anything done. You're walking, this building is huge.
Yeah.
4 equal 80,000 square, it's 336,000 square feet. It's like the size of 7 football fields inside this building. And, so it's a lot to keep up with and a lot to do. But the nice thing is, like you said, you run out of space before you run out of, money. And I think that we're seeing a lot of people thin the herd, maybe keep a couple of ones that are, really super extra special that you'll never replace, and then start all over again. I mean, we see collectors doing that on different auctions, and it's fun to watch because their collections always seem to get a little bit better as they start the next collection. So, what would you do? Race cars again, or is that always what you're going to do, or will your collection diversify into something else?
My passion is race cars. We're looking at doing some different type of race cars now. We've done some vintage road race cars. We did a car called the Ferret that was designed and built by a man named Peter Dawson. He did two, a Ferret 1, Ferret 2. He's also a Chrysler engineer that worked on the Goldenrod. He worked for Colin Chapman. So very interesting cars.
Wow.
We're looking at doing, some cars that ran places like the Cuban Grand Prix and,
Right.
out of our world a little bit. But really, I love race cars because they have a good story, but it can be a hot rod. You talked about cars you're going to keep. I'm going to keep, I've got the 58 Chevy from American Graffiti. That's one of the cars I'm going to keep.
Yes.
I've got one of the number 24 cars, one of the original number 24 cars that we built for Jeff Gordon for his rookie year. And, I've got some of my personal stuff, but really, there's a couple of things that we're out hunting for. And I would say that we're probably going a little bit down the road racing route this time than so much the oval stock car route. But if something comes up with a good story, we're going to grab it and try and save it. Right now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and I are partners in one of the cars that Bobby Allison won some races in. That was a Budmore Cougar bodied car. So we'll get to that eventually.
Nice. And I love cars from the Trans Am series from the 60s and 70s, so that'd be awesome to see some of those cars come back to life. There's quite a few of them out there, but I'm sure there's some hidden away. Did any of the cars that you're taking to Mecum, were all of them, were they done when you bought them, or were they in barn find condition, or were they?
Oh, no, we like the Andretti car, the Gurney car.
Right.
We restored both of those. There's that number 88, the Buddy Baker Dodge Daytona that set the world record at 200 miles per hour. That was a complete restoration. The Dick Trickle number 75, again, complete restoration. Some of the midgets and sprint cars that are going. So many of our own restorations are going through there as well.
Sure.
Well, and it's interesting to see, if you sell one type of car, one sprint car at an auction, you may not get every sprint car buyer in the country, but I guarantee you with the collection that you're sending to auction, every guy's a sprint car guy is either going to be on the phone, on the internet, or in Indianapolis come May. And yours actually run on Saturday the 21st, I believe, is the
Saturday the 21st. They're going to try and run all of our cars in a row. I'll be there myself. So I'm sure that I'm going to try and get some of my friends over to come over from Indy and see if we can make that happen.
Sure.
Because they'll be there practicing. But we've got, you talk about sprint cars, obviously you're talking about the Mario car and the Gurney car, but we've got a car that actually won the Knoxville Nationals in 1976, and Eddie Levitt was driving it, and Jan Opperman. Just Morgantown, you're right out there and real close. A lot of sprint car racers and stuff out there in the Morgantown area, but a couple of pretty famous sprint cars going through for us.
And if you've never, I guess if you've never driven a sprint car, the power to weight ratio is ungodly, I guess would be the only way to describe it.
Yeah, their thing, and out there they call the PA posse. They're about the only people in the country that can hold their own against the World of Outlaws. So a lot of friends out there in that dirt area too.
Well, and some of the car, I mean, the 65 Bronner Hawk Indy car that Mario Andretti won 9 wins in Indy car in that car that you got offered for sale. I mean, is that arguably the most valuable car in the grouping? In
my collection, for sure. Yeah. If you look at that car, Mario Andretti took his test at Indianapolis in that car, his rookie test. He finished third in his first Indy 500. He won his first championship in that car. So he won the championship in that car in 1965 and 1966, sat on the pole at Indy in 66, won several races with it. And, Mario, by his own admission, will tell you that's the car that really kickstarted his career.
And I mean, to come across to get that car in your possession, I imagine it wasn't simple. Just to you walk out and find it in a barn in a garage somewhere and say, "I'll take that one." It must have been difficult to find that one.
Believe it or not, that's when we were doing the TV show and we were getting calls and calls. That's why I'd like to kick the TV show off somehow again, because we were getting just tons of calls about that. Now, again, I probably had to pay. We went and paid what people wanted, which.
Sure.
So he probably offered it to a ton of other. The hard part was gathering up all the correct parts. That car's got probably 85-90% of the original parts from 1965 on it.
Wow.
And we had to buy another car, and we had to buy a bunch of parts, and we had to go see this guy and trade and do. But Jim McGee, who was one of the original builders, helped me gather up all of the parts. And so I think that's what's really rare about that car. And
Right.
the Dan Gurney car was really largely complete, but the only way I found that, I was filming Americana and bumped into a guy who had that car. So I need to get back on the road with the TV show.
Well, we look at Wayne Carini and what he does. I mean, his phone rings off the hook with collections of things that nobody gets calls out. Now, the Gurney car, you're talking about the Eagle Westlake car, is that?
Eagle, it's a Westlake Eagle. It was built for Dan. It was Dan's personal car in 1969. Finished second to Mario Andretti in the 1969 Indy 500. And then Dan won some races in 69. Then in 1970, Dan won his last IndyCar race in that car.
Wow. To me, that's probably the most beautiful car in your collection that's going there. Something about that car strikes me, and I don't know if it's that dark blue that just really grabs you, but a beauty of a car.
Yeah, Dan's cars were always amazing. That was what they call a Westlake. That was a Westlake Ford powered, but it was a Santa Ana Eagle designed by Tony Southgate. So they were square. And if you remember, the other Eagles were very cigar looking. So the Santa Ana Eagle was very different.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's interesting, And it's funny, it's these cars. It's hard you don't remember all these cars until you see a picture of it, and then the memories start flooding back of remembering when I was a kid watching races and I was 7 years old in 69, which I'm dating myself now. But, I remember seeing these type of cars at the Indy 500 and in my model kits that we bought and all of that. And so to see these back and resurrected, what a wonderful thing. And I got to imagine that the interest in that car is probably equally as high as the Mario car.
I've been fortunate, as I said, the three of the Indy cars that we're presenting were driven by AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, and Dan Gurney.
I mean, yeah, doesn't get any better than that. So some of the other cars you got in there, I mean, the Hemi Daytona, the first car to top 200. I know there's a meme or a picture out on Facebook that's got a Bugatti saying that it just achieved 200 miles an hour, and there's a picture of the Superbird below it that says, that's cute. We did that in 69. I mean, that's an amazing car, a Hemi car that was Buddy Baker raced and
Buddy Baker, again, started out as a production car, but that car, what's unique about it is it was the prototype design work, Chrysler in-house for all of the other Dodge Daytonas and NASCAR and a lot of the aero development. Great, brilliant engineer, Larry Rathgab, did so much with Petty's and through Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth, and whatnot, worked on that car. And it's the car is very documented. A lot of Larry Rathgab's handwritten notes and things like that go with that car.
Nice.
My partner in the car, Greg Kwiatkowski, actually spent years, and I mean years, like 27 or 28 years, just documenting and finding the parts for this thing. So it's, again, it is probably one of the most well-documented cars in our collection. And on top of that, had the most meticulous restoration.
Right.
Well, and then you've got the Torino Holman Moody car that's dear to my heart, the 68 Ford, because it's got East Tennessee Motor Company, and I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. So when I used to do at the races, I'd say, we're famous in Knoxville because this race car's running around. That's a very iconic car, isn't it?
It is. Holman Moody, big name, obviously, a lot to do with NASCAR's growth, but more importantly, David Pearson. Pearson is this cool, right? Second winningest driver ever in NASCAR history. And, till the day he died, believed he could have went back and won some more.
Sure.
he's just was a cool guy. He's still got his cigarette lighter in there. And I talked to like Leonard Wood and people like that. And they said, like on the last pit stop, when you'd see that, Petersen flick that cigarette out the window, that it was going to get on. And, again, I just love the guy. Cause I've got a picture of him in the scrapbook for this car, where, they're all getting the pictures in Victory Lane because he won at that time, it was the Rebel 400 at Darlington with the car.
Right.
So, but this is from a fan who was behind Victory Lane taking the picture. And, you can see they're all facing the cameras, and Petersen's standing there with the trophy queen, and he's got his hand right on her butt.
I love those old school guys smoking.
Well, that's just, that's this Petersen.
And then you've got, of course, the famous NASCAR car, the 2016 Porsche Cayman GT4. So,
yeah, that was I'll tell you, a buddy of mine had a GT4 Club Sport, and he wanted me to get into this vintage road racing, and he took me to Daytona, and he let me drive that Club Sport. I fell in love with it. So sure. I bought that Porsche and drove it, but I'll tell you the biggest problem with having a really nice street car that's got all that ability to do, there's no place to drive it.
I know.
And as I said, when Dana and Frank came down, I was like, I want to maybe, and then they're like, hey, look, so it's like, let's really make this a collection. These cars are personal to you. So I can't say that I'm not trying to get a GT4 RS from Mr. Hendrick, but
I think he might have one or two in inventory. Right?
Yeah, but he doesn't. I mean, those things are hard. It's hard to get. I know.
But the market is so hard to find anything anymore. And even if you're Rick Hendrick, who's, he's the guy.
Yeah. Now, for him, because they said, Ray, we've got one coming, but it's going to Rick's collection. So I sent him a text and asked him if I could have it, but he didn't text me back.
I got to see his collection in the upstairs office at the building. Dale gave us a tour one day. And see, I have a guitar in my office, but he has 80 guitars in his office of everybody.
Yeah, he's got some pretty special stuff. That was my office for a while when I went back there.
No kidding.
It was so not a bad place to hang out daily.
Man, I'm telling you, I tell you, well, we could do this all day, and we're way over our time, and I know you got millions of things to do, but man, oh man, this has been fun, and I want to thank you for being on the show and giving our little podcast a boost of car celebrity, and let's talk about it. We never know. Maybe we'll do a car show one of these days. Maybe we'll.
That'd be cool. Let me cool. I'm gonna keep an eye on that 40 Ford pickup and keep hammering you down on the price.
Hey, we're here. Just call my guys. They're much more gullible than they're much more amenable than I am. Anyway, Ray Evernerham, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to seeing you at one of the events down the road.
Thank you.
Take care.
You've been listening to the Classic Auto Mall Show with your host, Stewart Howden, executive producer, Steve Safier, produced and engineered by yours truly, J.R. Russ. Available on ClassicAutomall.com, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Music courtesy of the Pat Travers Band. For tour dates, contact, and stuff, visit PatTravers.com. Produced by Car Smarts Media. Copyright all rights reserved.